Now, the movie is a greasy little sci-fi number called Robot Holocaust. And it's in color.
Yay! This time we watched Season 1, Episode 10, Robot Holocaust.
In which a bunch of people cosplaying as Conan walk through the dunes of New York City?
It's true. And we've got yet another chapter of Radar Men from the Moon.
My favorite.
But first, happy birthday, It's Just a Show.
Happy birthday, It's Just a Show. How old are we now?
We are recording this episode on our 8th birthday.
Really?
Yep,
Aww.
8 years ago today, the very first episode went out, and now we're recording the very 172nd episode.
Well, I mean, way back then it was Adam and Beth and you in producer role, and look how far we've come in 172 episodes.
Well, we've certainly gotten to talk about a whole bunch of things over 172 hours of normal episodes, and a bunch of bonus bits, and a bunch of bonus episodes, and a bunch of other things. Thanks, listeners, especially for those of you who've been with us the whole way, but even those of you who are new and just dip into the show occasionally when we cover an episode that you quite like. Hey, whatever it is, thank you for coming along for the ride.
And thank you to our patrons as well over on patreon.com. It really helps us out. So thank you for supporting our journey in our years and years of broadcasting.
Okay, well, we've got a very special one for our 8th birthday. I think we're old enough now to tackle the complexities that come with Robot Holocaust. By the way, listeners, just a little heads up. If you're listening to this with, shall we say, tender ears nearby, there's going to be a slightly adult conversation that's part of this. We're going to be keeping things relatively PG or PG-13 rated while talking about things that are not very PG or PG-13 rated. So if you listen to this normally with the kids, save this one for later and switch over to our Teletubbies podcast, which I'm sure we'll be dropping any day now.
Though I'm sure you'll give them a heads up when we reach that section too.
Nope.
Ah, good work.
All right, let's go on to talk about Robot Holocaust.
This time we watch Season 1, Episode 10, Robot Holocaust.
But first, a short Radar Men from the Moon, Chapter 9, Battle in the Stratosphere. I'm going to try to get some enthusiasm for this. Okay, last time we saw Commando Cody, he was in a lunar car chase, and his car was exploded by a deadly ray gun. Now see, in the last chapter, that meant certain death. But this time around, it just means the car gets a little shaken. Eventually, Cody manages to get back to his spaceship with the MacGuffin and one of the Martians as a prisoner, and then the film breaks, and we don't have to sit through the remaining 3.5 chapters of Commando.
And now for our feature presentation. In the future, there will be a time when so much war and radiation has spread that the very air we breathe will kill living things. At this time, humans will congregate in the old cities where some elite forces will create an air filtration system that makes a limited but breathable atmosphere. These elite will be robots. Robots do not need to breathe air to survive, but they do need power sources. The Dark One will rule over all humans and force them to work as slaves, air slaves, toiling away each day to feed the power station, giving the Dark One and their robot minions the strength to continue ruling over humans. It's a vicious cycle. And I know what you're thinking. We need a hero. Someone to make a substantial change to this structure and free humanity from enslavement. We have a few excellent candidates. There's a scientist, Jorn, a man who has created an air filter that can be fitted to each human and allow them to breathe everywhere. But he's captured by the robots and brought to the Dark One's minion Valeria to torture for information. There's also the scientist's daughter, Deja, who wants to rescue him. And fortunately, she meets an even better contender for hero, Neo. Now, not that Neo. This one is kind of beefy in a scrawny way. Like in the 80s, you were either shaped like the Terminator or like Kyle Reese. And this guy is more like Reese, but he's dressed in an animal skin rag like a Conan costume when Conan's wearing more than a bikini bottom. You know what I mean. Neo is from a band of rebels that want to defeat the Dark One and free the people. He's able to breathe poisoned air, amazing, and there are more folks who can do so in the wastelands, the area outside the atmosphere maintained by the Dark One. Neo offers, along with his recently acquired non-evil robot companion Clayton, to escort a small party to the power station to rescue Jorn. The group travels through many areas of the wastelands, collecting a couple more companions along the way. Valeria, the Dark One's minion, throws all the obstacles and danger at them she can. This lady is working super hard. She's commanding a robot force, she's torturing a guy, she's impeding the progress of the heroes. She deserves a raise and some recognition. But instead, the Dark One punishes her because she's not perfect at her job. Since, Jorn tells them nothing, and the merry band continues to progress to the power station. Also, she's not very articulate, which makes things confusing if you don't have closed captions turned on. Also, it turns out she's actually a robot too, so there's that. When the group reaches the power station, there's a big fight. The robots lose. Valeria loses. Neo has to kill Deja's dad in order to defeat the Dark One, which makes her very sad. So, I guess no couples were made during the course of this film. But in better news, the air slaves get free air now, so that means they aren't slaves anymore. Deja will continue her dad's work, and Neo will bring the folks to the city to rebuild. And he gets to keep his neat little robot friend. The only non-evil robot in the movie. Or is he? No, he's not. The end.
Meanwhile, on the satellite of love, we open with Joel once again explaining his situation. He's stuck in space and being forced to watch bad movies. Oh, you know the drill. But anyway, he lets us know that he's up to the task because he's a human. Crow plays the riff to Muddy Waters' I'm a Man on the harmonica, and Joel sings the blues like only Joel can, I guess. For the invention exchange, Joel thinks it's weird that you can't smoke in a stadium, but that monster trucks can belch smoke there, so he's made the nitro-burning funny pipe. It makes a ton of noise, and it shoots flames real high. The Mads have made a stocking mask with remote-controlled articulated eyebrows for the bank robber who wants to have facial expressions without showing their face. After some movie, Tom and Crow are wearing animal skins, and when Joel walks by, they inform him that he's entered the We Zone. This is just like the Amazonian she zone that our heroes go through in the movie, except we haven't gotten to that part of the movie yet, so it's a little confusing. But anyway, in the We Zone, Joel has to do everything the bots want. And they want him to do magic tricks and make silly faces, which of course Joel hates to do. Why, they even make him do a very realistic-looking handstand. Then Joel and the bots play a sitcom with a laugh track that just loves all their terrible jokes. And then it starts laughing at things which aren't jokes, and then it laughs when Joel slips and falls and hurts himself. It's all too much, and so they turn off Cambot's canned laughter module. And then they play post-apocalyptic movie, but Tom's the only one really feeling it. And now Crow is getting upset about the fact that he's wearing furs, even though he wore them a few segments ago. So Joel and Crow leave, and Tom tries to carry on playing alone. At the end of the movie, there's nothing left to do but to hold a contest to see what the best name for the half-scientist, half-avocado guy would be. I mean, Jorn is there, but anyway, also they read a letter from a dad and son team. Son is 7, dad is 36, but this episode came out a few years ago, so now son is like 42. Well, hope he's still a fan. What do you think, sirs?
So, Chris, last time we were finishing up our episode, you said that this one ranks in the top 100 episodes from that poll that they did.
Yeah, although I think that got cut out of the final edit, but yes.
Oh, do you agree? Do you think it should be there?
Do I think it should be there? There's stuff that I like about this episode, and I'm not surprised it's there because I know it's kind of a bit of a small fan favorite, even though it's season 1, and therefore people didn't get to see it for quite a long time. But they did keep referencing it, right? Like Valeria, which is the reason why anybody thinks about this movie. Valeria is one of the iconic female characters who doesn't speak English very well that the fans just love, along with the woman from Werewolf.
Oh, man. So it was really hard for me watching the episode to take those riffs. As I mentioned in my recap of the movie, I had the closed captions turned on so I could understand everything she was saying perfectly. So the fact that every single riff seemed to be harping on mishearing what she was saying, it didn't land for me. But I understand that that's because of the circumstance that I was watching the movie in.
No. It's not. It's
No?
You could understand her just fine, even without closed captioning. They are making a big deal about an accent and a sort of mumble mouth situation, but it's really not that hard to understand what she's saying. Or I don't know. I don't find it very hard to understand. And I also get a bit frustrated that they kept making these fairly unfunny jokes about her pronunciation, which, on the one hand, yeah, I get it. Especially once you realize that she's a robot, it's quite odd that she has a German accent.
Or any accent at all, I suppose.
Yeah, well, she should basically be fitting in with everyone else, in the world that she's been created in. So it's very odd. And it feels like a very odd choice to pick an actor who has such an accent for that kind of role.
Sure, but I could totally see if you are programming a robot, right? And you are making a hot lady robot that you might also give her some sort of an exotic accent. It feels like a very 80s choice to make in terms of what the projection of a robot would look like if its purpose was something that was a little sexual, say.
I suppose, although it's not clear who made these robots. And I mean, there's a lot that isn't clear. The world building is nearly non-existent in this movie outside of whatever is necessary for the scene that we are in and no further.
I mean, it's interesting when you think about, okay, if there's going to be a total breakdown of society, and this is going to be, many generations past that, how would you understand the creation of the society that you're living in, right? It reminds me of the 2003 movie with Sumeru, where you had this all-female or nearly all-female society many generations removed from this horrific thing happening that wiped out a good part of the population, and they're trying to build a mythos around it, right? So where's that built mythos, right, for this society?
Well, and, had this movie been a little more successful, it was meant to be the first of many. The second film that they were already planning was going to be taking place on a abandoned spaceship or something like that. So
it wasn't going to be the buddy movie that our riffs suggest it might have been?
It still could have been if those two had ended up in the spaceship, but I don't know. It didn't go anywhere,
Sure.
But there are things I like about the movie, which is mostly not very good and mostly very confusing. The costuming and especially the robots are all great, and the creatures are also great.
Yes.
I love Greg Clayton is a very like C3PO knockoff. Fine, but it's fine.
But don't you love Torque?
Torque with his little Dr. Zoidberg tendrils coming down.
Oh my goodness.
Is amazing.
Yes. And that cape that he wears, I totally was watching that cape going like, oh, could I Halloween costume that? Would anybody know what it was if somebody was walking around in that? Because it's amazing.
It's real good. I also really enjoyed like the sewage worms, which were basically little sock puppets coming out of the wall, man-eating sock puppets that were grabbing at people. They looked exactly like what they were, and It was great. I loved that bit. There was like a gruesome moment when one of them got hacked, and it looked a little too visceral for my needs, but whatever. It's fine.
You're so sensitive to things like that, Chris.
I am, and that's okay.
It totally is.
I'm not holding it against the film. And also the final plant guy, like the Avocado Man version of Jorn, when he's been fused with the Dark One, is real good. It's a real good image.
He really does just look like an avocado with a little man head on top, you know, instead of the little nobule where the avocado used to be connected to the tree, it's like a little man head.
Exactly.
It's lovely.
And, it's very good. Also, the fact that one of the characters is named Torque encourages a lot of monkeys jokes about Peter Torque.
It's true.
I have to say, like, Joel's first Peter Torque joke is the most Joel joke ever. It just rambles on. It refuses to try to go for like a button to go for any climax or punchline to the joke. If most jokes aspire to a punchline, this one is just a finger gently drawing a line down the side of your face.
That sounds so much more erotic than it really is, though, Chris.
I don't know, man. Maybe it is a little erotic. I don't know.
Torque, take him to the crystal.
Torque? Oh, that's what happened to Peter Torque. He's doing rubber suit work now after the monkeys broke up. It's interesting.
I don't know. I mean, I've had the hand of Joel on my shoulder healing me, which is a very different thing than the gentle touch of his Peter Torque joke.
Also, at this point in season 1, they hadn't shown any color films yet, and I feel like that alone means that people were very excited by this one.
They certainly were.
Yeah, though obviously Moon 02 is the next episode, and that's a much better episode and movie and color palette.
They had done color movies inside of the KTMA era, so knowing the existence of KTMA might make this a little bit more of a soft impact, but most of the nation didn't, so that's fine.
Yeah, and I also imagine most of the people who were voting in that poll didn't see this episode when it first came out.
That's true.
Yeah, so anyway, to answer your question, no, this isn't my favorite season 1 episode, and I don't know whether it would make it into my top 100 episodes of MST3K, but, you know, I'm glad I get to think about the avocado guy.
There's one thing about this episode that absolutely would make it not in my top half, though, Chris, and that's the fact that there's a Commando Cody.
All right, but it doesn't have a full Commando Cody, does it?
Okay, that's totally true. And that alone might be like, all right, it's my top episode with a Commando Cody short because we get so little of the short.
And like, what a great way to send off the Commando Cody series is by having the film rip apart in front of us and have some like hold music up, a little screen of Dr. Forrester and Dr. Earhart just going whoopsies, you know, please be patient. I forget exactly what it says.
God. It's totally perfect because Dr. Earhart has the hand over his mouth and the like, oops kind of motion. It's so perfect. I love it.
It's a great moment.
It totally is. It might have been my favorite moment of the entire episode. I mean, even though there's like a slightly muscular man walking around in a Conan bikini, I still prefer the hold space for the thing cutting. And it, of course, means that it gives us an explanation for why we will never get another Commando Cody after this, because the film broke. They can't possibly show anymore.
You know, back in the day when these were coming out, and maybe not season 1, because I wasn't watching season 1 so regularly, but when they would do the other, you know, Phantom Creeps and so forth in the later seasons, I always wanted them to get through an entire serial. And now that I've tried to follow them on the journey of getting through an entire serial, obviously that's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea for so many reasons.
And let me tell you how much of a terrible idea it is, because I watched the rest of the Commando Cody Radar Men from the Moon.
Oh, good. Now we can find out what happens.
I mean, it's a lot more fistfights and car chases and things blowing up. That's pretty much it. I mean, I did write a summary if you want to hear it, Chris.
Yeah, let's hear the summary. And then I never have to think of this IP again.
Oh, so good. All right, so here comes the exciting conclusion of Commando Cody. To finish the battle in the stratosphere, the rocket with Commando Cody and friends +1 starts leaving the moon. That +1 is a moon guy who they don't want to leave behind, so he starts fist fighting them on the rocket. He's overpowered and killed. Commando Cody ejects his dead body from the rocket and heads to Earth. Radic commands the moon people on Earth to shoot down Cody's rocket before it lands with the lunarium, and told, not to f it up this time, but, minions be minioning, so they totally f it up since Cody is distracting them. In the next episode, Mass Execution, the rocket lands and Cody survives, of course, and now the Earth has lunarium. All they need is a ray gun, and they're going to build one in Cody's laboratory. But they need to stave off the Moonman invasion. Remember that plot? Yeah, it's been a while, so they recap it, trying to remember the details that might give them the timing of the invasion. Remember Radic? He's going to send a bunch of rockets and ray guns to kill all the people on Earth because the moon has a thinning atmosphere and can't make food anymore. Radic told Cody all of this in a previous episode. Anyway, as they walk down memory lane, the Earth thugs hired by the Moonmen trap them in the room and pipe in bad air. Cody and his friends almost die. But they don't. In the next episode, Planned Pursuit, Cody and friends escape because a cop comes by and breaks open the door and takes them out of the bad air. Cody and friends steal the cop's car to pursue the thugs. There's a car chase. The cop tells his cop friends that his car's been stolen, so the conclusion of the very exciting car chase is the two thugs and Cody and friend are arrested and brought to the police station. Cody convinces the police that he's Cody, and they let the thugs go so Cody can follow them to the secret hideout. At the hideout, Cody hears that Radic's on Earth to take command and that the thugs are ordered to get some trucks for ray guns. Cody bursts in, starts fighting the thugs, even though he loses to them every time. Cody does manage to kill the Moon Man, but the thugs overpower him and he nearly dies. Radic has overheard the whole fight, and he tells the thugs to stick with the plan and get the trucks for the ray guns. And in the final episode, Death of the Moon Man, Cody revives, heads back to his laboratory to tell everyone what he knows, including about the ray gun the moon guys left behind in the cave. Cody gets a call from Al. Remember Al? Al tells him that the thugs are in his place, so Cody sends a contingent to go get the ray gun from the cave and the lunarium, and he and his friend rush over to Al's. A fist fight with the thugs ensues, and Cody never wins these, so they lose and have to chase the thugs out and get in a car, and they have a really exciting car chase. The driver thug gets shot by Cody, the two go over a cliff, the car explodes, the thugs are totally gone, but Radic still remains. So Cody and his friend head to the second secret cave where Radic is, and there's a gunfight, and they kill a moon man, but Radic gets in his rocket to return to the moon, so Cody and his friends race out to where the ray gun's waiting, and they blow up Radic's rocket with his ray gun. Crisis averted. The end. That's the conclusion of Commando Cody with Radar Men from the Moon.
At no point does the action escalate, huh?
No, it pretty much just remains. Every single episode has to have a fist fight with somebody, and Cody has to lose the fist fight or something. And there always has to be a car chase, and the shenanigans aren't even interesting. It's
So it's kind of weird that Robot Holocaust is as bad a movie as it is.
Is it?
Well, arguably, because the director of this movie has some previous directing experience, and he directed and wrote a trilogy of influential, critically and commercially successful films from the 1970s.
Oh, well, it does seem like he should have been able to do something interesting in the 80s. What are these movies from the 70s like?
Well, the important thing to know about them is that they are pornographic movies.
Oh, that's why they were so interesting. Oh, or were they interesting besides the fact that they were porn?
No, they weren't interesting because they were porn. Plenty of porn is not interesting, famously.
Perhaps. But 70s porn, you have been making an argument on this show, existed at a really interesting time for the genre and was doing something different than we might think about porn being today.
Right. So a little while back, we did a little bonus bit episode where we talked about Ed Wood's early 70s adult films and how they situated themselves in a time when you were just starting to be able to show non-simulated sex on screen, and how would you incorporate this into movies as we understood them, like little pornographic reels of people having sex and yada yada. Like that's existed since film has, of course.
Sure.
But this idea of like putting out a feature-length film and having it be a movie that also includes actual sex was something that the industry spent a lot of the 70s thinking its way through and experimenting with. And therefore, some of the porn from the 70s is at least interesting on that conceptual level.
And Tim Kincaid didn't just make like a single pornographic film that was interesting, but he created a trilogy that suggests some sort of like a continuing story throughout the three of them, right?
Yeah, and it is. He directed this trilogy under the pseudonym Joe Gage, and they are known as the Working Man Trilogy or the Kansas City Trilogy.
Okay.
They came out between 1976 and 1979, and the films are called Kansas City Trucking Company,
Okay.
El Paso Wrecking Corporation, and L.A. Tool and Die.
I love these titles, but I feel like they're going to be like those novels that we were talking about, like Virgin in Flames, where the novel cover and the name is the best part of the whole thing. But you've actually watched the movies. Am I right?
I did actually watch these movies. It's true. And I have to say, they're weirdly good. Like they are influential and critically and commercially successful for a reason.
Nice.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of surprised that Robot Holocaust isn't as good as it probably should be. Because he's doing kind of an interesting thing here. Like, all right, let me say up front, these are porn movies. And if you're not interested in that kind of thing at all, then these won't work for you. Just like if you're not interested in, I don't know, musicals,
Sure.
then no musical is going to convince you otherwise if you can't stand hearing singing.
Don't watch The Music Man.
Yeah.
Yes. So is it appropriate to ask for like a general storyline for these movies? Would that be helpful for me to understand what's going on?
Sure. They focus on a guy named Hank, played by Richard Locke, which probably isn't his real name, but who cares?
Sure.
In the first movie, Kansas City Trucking Company, Hank is a trucker, and he gets a new guy named Joe, who's going to be assigned to be his like buddy on the next trip.
Okay.
And they drive out west from Kansas City to deliver a payload, I suppose. And along the way, Joe not only begins to learn what it is to be a trucker, but also
What it is to be a fucker?
very
Sorry.
much so. Yes, but more specifically, one who, appreciates the company of another man.
Oh, very nice.
Joe is married and doesn't seem to be entirely inexperienced in these sort of things. But, this is sort of his blossoming into this wild world of possibility on the road.
So Hank is already an experienced trucker and he's bringing Joe into the fold is what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to be his
Right hand?
Virgil to the
so
other guy's
speak?
Dante. Oh, yeah, that too.
I'm sorry. This is so fun. All right. So Hank and Joe on their little drive west. They deliver the payload.
Yeah.
Many times, I hope.
Many payloads are delivered by many people. Like, one of the things that happens in these films is that there's sort of a main plot, this main journey, but there are lots of scenes along the way. Like you encounter a person, but then you follow that person and you see their little sexual scene and like what their whole deal is. So it's kind of a bit like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where you're going through all these towns and you're talking with the locals, and then you're just finding out about them.
Okay.
Except all you're finding out about them is like what
sexy times they like.
Yeah. Which, does say something about a person, I suppose.
Do Hank and Joe participate in the sexy times of the people that they run into in these cities, or is their story mainly separate?
They do sometimes participate, but sometimes they don't.
Okay.
It all depends. There's all sorts of possibilities and permutations that happen. And also, like, Hank isn't particularly hitting on Joe.
Okay.
They do have sex, but like, he's more of a mentor in the sense of like, when Joe needs to understand what's going on, Hank is there for him.
Oh, okay.
But Hank is never pressuring him into doing anything. He's just like, it's fine. You can do things.
Is this like the Marquis de Sade when he's talking about bringing new people into the fold and is talking about, I only appreciate a woman's body for what she has in common with a man, and let's talk about the things we can do type of thing?
No, it's a lot more wholesome than that. Like,
oh, well, that's good.
Hank is a really likable character.
You're suggesting the Marquis de Sade is not likable.
Well, I suppose so, but I don't know, the way you described it right there, it just sounded a little bit manipulative and like transactional. Whereas Hank is just a guy who's hanging out with guys and they're having a good time together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's very open.
It's a very 70s vibe in general.
Well, these are very much porn films from the 70s, I would say.
So good.
For everything that means, although not the worst things I would say that means.
So you have this first movie where Hank and Joe are kind of trucking from Kansas City, and they have some interactions with some locals and they learn about locals. Is there like a storyline that has a climax, or is it just kind of a journey?
Well, it has a climax, as you say, in that when they finally deliver the payload, Joe has sort of also done his journey where he is now thoroughly interested in being part of this world, let's say.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of dream sequences in this film, but sometimes you can't quite tell whether it's a dream sequence or not. And that's not because the film is badly made. It's very intentionally like blurring the edges between dream and reality sometimes. So when Joe gets to the destination, when Hank and Joe get to the destination, there is an orgy sequence.
Okay.
And Joe fantasizes about being part of it and then is part of it, so to speak, as he opens up and accepts the things that he wants to be doing.
Dreams really do come true.
It's a happy ending.
Yeah. But that's only the first movie of the three?
Yeah. So the second movie is called El Paso Wrecking Corporation, and Hank and a new friend, Gene, they get fired from the Kansas City Trucking Company, and so they drive down to El Paso, where Gene knows of a demolition crew that's always hiring, and they have a bunch of sexual encounters along the way.
Sure.
And, you get to see, once again, a wide variety of, and mostly like working class male sexual encounters. And, like in the last one, they get to the job site and it culminates in a big pylon. And the final movie is called L.A. Tool and Die. And in this one, Hank is sort of wrapping up his work in El Paso.
Is Gene still in it?
No.
Okay.
But Hank is at a bar and he sees this guy named Wiley across the bar. And he immediately senses that this guy might just be the one.
Oh, like capital T, capital O, the one?
Very much so. Wiley is headed out to L.A. for a new job, and Hank finds out where he was going and then sort of follows him to hopefully catch up with him. And along the way, Wiley, who said to Hank early on that he wasn't interested in, quote, sport fucking, he gives it a few tries, actually, along the way.
Oh, okay.
And so by the time that he gets to L.A. and finds that Hank has already beaten him there, he's a little bit more okay with the idea. But Hank, who is completely smitten with Wiley, still is not like pushing him into anything. He's like, if it happens, it happens.
Sure.
And eventually Wiley's like, yeah, let's have it happen. And Hank like buys an orange farm, and there's a whole side quest there about them like settling down at this orange farm. But
oranges are not the only fruit, I understand.
Yeah. No, of course it's kind of a scam. It's completely desert part of California that couldn't grow oranges. But then he's like putting in a for sale sign and then water gushes up and it's like, oh, actually, this is going to make us a lot of money. So very happy ending there as well. That movie is also kind of interesting because at one point, Wiley has a flashback to Vietnam.
Oh?
To a friend who died by his side in Vietnam and, tells him a few things on his deathbed.
Oh my gosh.
That encourages Wiley to like be more open to life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds really heavy.
Yeah. These movies go places and they all go places in different ways. I mean, so we've talked a lot now about sort of like the plot and the characters. And I think L.A. Tool and Die is kind of the most well-liked of the three by most people because it has this like surprise happy ending where like it's very romantic. Like the final sex scene in L.A. Tool and Die is a romantic one.
Aw, nice. It's not just sport f***ing.
No, although that's the scene right before it, right? So the sex scene anyways, right before it is, the big pylon. And there's a sense that like these two things are not mutually exclusive in this world, right? Like there's no sense that they're going to give up having sex for fun just because they're in a relationship now. So like there's this really wonderful open possibility space and it's doing interesting things with like the psychology of the characters. But what I would say is one of the other interesting things that is going on are just like the directing choices. These films don't have a lot of budget. But especially in the first film, I found the goal was to get really interesting shots and edit them together in an interesting way. These films are made in the editing room. They are so carefully edited. I don't mean carefully edited like the perfectly matched shots or anything, but just like the pacing of everything and the way that they're thinking about how film works on you. A lot of porn is just like set up the cameras and film and hope for the best, it feels like. I know there's direction going on, but like it's not very involved. And this is aggressively edited. And because of that, some of the sex scenes are quite like short and yet effective. And again, it's just really remarkable. It's just such a filmic way of thinking about this sort of thing. And, some of it's quite visual. There's whole sequences that are just like saturated in weird pink light. So I don't know, there's all sorts of really interesting editing and sound choices and visual choices. And like, it's just operating on such a different level. And while like, I don't want to pretend like the writing or the acting is brilliant, it is wildly different from what you expect from later porn films.
Yeah. Now, the way that you're describing this, it sounds like most of the encounters that are happening are male companions with other male companions. Are there mixtures of things as they go along as well?
In L.A. Tool and Die, there is a man and woman sequence starring someone who I believe is a well-known porn star. And there's also a third guy who is sort of being a voyeur. But yeah, generally speaking, it is about, men who are having sex with men, not all of whom would identify as gay or even bi, but like, this is just a thing that happens. Like Joe Gage doesn't seem to be too interested in tying these people down. Although in several of the films, there are homophobes who will try to start stuff. And Hank is up to the task.
Oh.
Hank is up to the task of dealing with them.
Excellent.
At one point, the homophobe calls Hank a sucker. And Hank just says, you better believe it.
Ooh.
If there's anything I like better than sucking it's kicking ass.
Oh my God, it's so good.
But my sense from reading people talking about this is that there is something incredibly liberating about going to a porn film and seeing your porn star guy beat up the homophobe.
Well, yeah, actually, yes, there is something so incredibly liberating about that. Period. In any movie, when the homophobe gets beat up, like, go beat her up of the homophobes.
Exactly. So these films had a real like sense of what male-male relationships could be like, and the wide variety of like working class male-male relationships and how you deal with the social issues of the day. And I don't know, these films are like the biker films in their interest in having a kind of freedom and a kind of enjoyment about just being on the road, but they're also kind of doing something more interesting.
Hey everybody, it's time for the Shallow 13.
It's time for the Shallow 13. 13 robot guards sacrificing themselves for today's experiment, Robot Holocaust. Go, Chris, go.
Not a lot of familiar faces in Robot Holocaust, though its executive producer was Charles Band, who also produced or executively produced, a few other misted movies like The Day Time Ended, Robot Wars, Dr. Mordred, and Laser Blast.
But even if the faces aren't familiar, the music might be, as the score to Robot Holocaust borrows some of its cues from Laser Blast, which Mike and the bots would riff in Season 7, and which we'll talk about someday.
And not exactly a familiar face, since we never really get to see the actor's face, but Clayton, Neo's C-3PO-type companion robot, was played by Joel von Ornsteiner, who these days goes by the name Dr. Buzz, an actual forensic psychologist who shows up on the TV show Copycat Killers.
Come on, you know Copycat Killers. It's a true crime show, but the true crimes they talk about are based on movie crimes. Like the real killers imitate scenes they've seen in movies. Copycat Killers. It's on Reels? You know, Reels. Well, anyway, Robot Holocaust hasn't inspired a murder yet, which is probably a good thing, though getting Dr. Buzz to comment on such a killing would make some must-see TV.
On to the riffs. Commando Cody and his buddy Ted are getting up after the lunar car has been shook by a ray gun blast, and Crow riffs.
Whoa, he's got the Zackleys big time.
Having the Zaxleys is slang for when a person's face or breath looks or smells exactly like their, butt. It's not entirely clear what inspired that riff for this particular scene, though, theories abound.
And when the rocket takes off, Crow riffs.
Ron Howard pops the clutch and tells the moon to eat my dust.
They make variations on this riff a lot, but have we ever talked about this one before? Eat My Dust is a 1976 film where Ron Howard steals a race car in order to impress a woman. Hijinks and a lot of car chases ensue. Roger Corman produced it because, of course he did. Listeners, write in and tell me if I should watch it.
As our heroes enter the tunnel of deadly sock puppets, we get this exchange.
We must be quiet from here on in.
Why?
Writer's strike.
Sewage worms.
Same thing.
Well, the form of the joke is impeccable, but the content is pretty gross. This episode aired in January 1990. In March 1988, the Writers Guild of America had gone on strike for more fair compensation, and the strike lasted a record-breaking 154 days, though the 2023 strike came close at 148 days. The MST3K writers weren't part of the Writers Guild of America until the Netflix series.
And when the heroes get to the power plant, we get this one.
If they know we're coming,
They'd have baked a cake.
Eileen Barton's rendition of If I Knew You Were Comin', I'd 'a' Baked a Cake rose to the top of the charts in 1950. And, of course it did. It's catchy, and it's got hand claps and everything. I grew up with a 78 of this song, which I played on my mom's Victrola.
It was also one of my mom's favorite songs, too. Randomly start singing. But anyway, Eileen Barton's contract said she was supposed to get 5% of the royalties from this hit single, but she would later say she never saw a dime. Sadly, companies screwing over creative workers is not exactly uncommon.
Our heroes explore the power plant, and we get this joke from Joel, followed eventually by a quip from Crow.
Hey, wouldn't it be funny if they ran into master carpenter Norm Abramson?
What we're doing here, Bob, is we got this little robot problem.
This Old House is a home improvement show that first aired in 1979 and was one of the first home improvement shows on television. The host was Bob Vila, but as he showed us the home that was being improved, he'd check in with various people doing the work, including master carpenter Norm Abram, not, as Joel says, Abramson.
The show is still on the air somehow, and while Bob stepped down in 1989 to host a new show, Bob Vila's Home Again, Norm continued on until 2022. Norm's style, his plaid shirts, and his mild-mannered personality are beloved, and occasionally are lovingly parodied, most famously with Tim Allen's co-host Al on Tool Time, the show within a show in 90s hit sitcom Home Improvement.
As Neo attacks and kills Torque, the robot with the fish tendrils, Tom goes,
"That's for Mrs. Paul. That's for Gordon Gloucester. That's for Arthur Treacher. That's for H-Salt. That's for Filet of Fish."
Mrs. Paul's was a frozen seafood company started in 1946. Gordon's of Gloucester was a much older fishing company that got into the frozen fish business in the 30s. It's now just called Gorton's.
Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips, meanwhile, is a chain of restaurants that peaked in popularity in the 70s. Only a handful remain today. It's named after English character actor Arthur Treacher, who played the butler Jeeves in a few Wooster and Jeeves films in the 30s. H. Salt Esquire Fish and Chips is, like Arthur Treacher's, a British-style fish and chips chain that started in the USA. And the Filet-O-Fish is...
You know what Filet-O-Fish is. Come on, that's time.
One of the things that I love about this movie is that it's set in New York City.
Yes.
And it resolutely does not want to engage with New York City as it is normally represented at all.
It's so cute. It's like a bunch of friends were just like, let's get dressed up like Conan the Barbarian and saunter through the park.
Yeah, we get to see establishing shots of the city behind them, and we get to see all sorts of famous landmarks back in the wasteland, including the Twin Towers and the Chrysler Building and the Pan Am Building and the UN.
And a little teeny peek of the Empire State Building when we get to see the Chrysler Building, too. It's pretty interesting. Weird angles. I couldn't really figure out where they were.
Well, for the most part, in the outdoor shots, they are on Roosevelt Island.
I don't think I ever went to Roosevelt Island, not once while I lived in New York.
Yeah, and I bet a lot of listeners who aren't from New York or haven't spent any time there, or even if they visited it once or twice, would probably have no idea what we're talking about, what Roosevelt Island even is, because it's simply not a famous part of New York. And while New York is, let's say, a little overrepresented in media.
Sure.
There's plenty of bits of New York that are absolutely not, because it's a city and it's a big city and there's lots of things going on. But like, I love that partially because, I grew up in a part of New York City that nobody knows anything about.
Well, people know about the borough of Queens, but it's true that particular section of Queens is not particularly well known.
No, and when people who grew up even around New York would come out to the part of Queens that I grew up in, they'd be kind of surprised because it looks nothing like New York in the sense that it's like not packed with big buildings. I mean, it looks a lot like New York if you know New York well. I'm not saying that.
It doesn't look like the city, right? When we think of the city, we think of what we see in like a Law and Order episode or something, but that's mainly going to be on the island of Manhattan.
Exactly. And you might also think about like, I don't know, Archie Bunker, or you might think about some parts of Brooklyn that show up in things. But like, I don't know, New York is kind of diverse and there are all these little weird corners that are not like anything. And Roosevelt Island is kind of the poster child for a weird bit of New York.
I guess it must be. I never went to Roosevelt Island, but I seem to remember there being like a tram or something there. Like in order to get onto it, one of the ways that you could get there is by tram. So it's not subway, it's not bus, but you can take a tram.
So it's true. For a while there, the best way to get from Manhattan to Roosevelt Island was taking a tram, which looked scary as all get out to me, and I've never taken it, but it is kind of fun to be walking on the Upper East Side and see it. I guess we should explain. Roosevelt Island is this very long, thin island in the East River between the Upper East Side of Manhattan and parts of Queens. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, in the 19th to 20th centuries, it was mostly hospitals and prisons.
Super fun.
Exactly. By the turn of the 20th century, it was nicknamed Farewell Island because of, well, it was a poorhouse and a jail and some hospitals. And if you were going to this island, you were possibly not coming back. So in 1921, they renamed it to improve its reputation to Welfare Island.
Oh, yeah, that worked out real well for them. Wow.
I don't think welfare as a word was quite as charged as it is now. Yeah.
Fair enough. So when did it become called Roosevelt Island? Because that's all I've ever known it as.
Yeah, well, in 1960, most of it was abandoned, and there were only 2 hospitals remaining, and they were in bad shape, and they wanted to redevelop it. And, there's a lot of back and forth because, New York. But they finally renamed it after Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1973 and started building residences there, which opened up in like 74 and so forth. The first ones that opened up, there were no stores on the island.
Oh, gosh.
The tram hadn't been built yet. It opened in 76.
So how did you get your groceries?
You drove across the bridge into Astoria in Queens.
I can't even imagine. Like a place in New York City where you have to own a car. I can't imagine that. That's what's throwing me off so much. Not the fact that you had to drive across it. Like, I grew up in San Francisco. There are houses on Yerba Buena Island and on Treasure Island, right? Like, people live there and they have to drive a car over to Oakland or into San Francisco to do their shopping. Like, there is no other way. But, like, that's not the story of New York City. New York City, famously, you can get anywhere. One city, one fare. I can't imagine Roosevelt Island not being connected by public transport.
Yeah, well, I guess you could walk across. And, when we lived together in Astoria, Queens, a million years ago, at any point, we could have actually had a perfectly lovely day trip walking to Roosevelt Island and back. It would not have been a problem. We basically lived on the road that leads to the bridge.
I want to go back to our past selves and be like, go to Roosevelt Island so that I don't have to say I never went. Come on, past Charlotte.
I've only been there once when I was going there for effectively a work thing. It's complicated, but I was basically doing a thing, and it was right after the subway finally opened up. The subway had been planned for a long time, but the subway station on Roosevelt Island only opened in 1989.
Wow.
And it was not long after that when I went to do a thing at a school there, basically. And it was very surreal to be on Roosevelt Island and see all these new construction and middle-class construction happening in this part of New York.
That's the next thing I was going to ask. For somebody who's looking to either rent or own on Roosevelt Island, how rich do you have to be to live there? Because you're so close to Manhattan.
You don't have to be necessarily that rich, but it is a huge waiting list to get into there.
Oh.
So good luck to that. But anybody can visit, and there's some parks, and you can try to find some of the locations that were used in this movie, although it's all cleaned up since then.
Sure. Well, I'm sure that all of our listeners want to go to Roosevelt Island in order to find the sets from Robot Holocaust.
I mean, what else are you going to do in New York City? You might remember that there is a little subway type entrance that they go down at one point to get into the tunnels.
Yes, because they talk about how at one point in time there was a thing they called the subway underneath of here. In what we used to call a city.
So as far as I can tell, it says emergency exit 53rd Street Tube IND. And if I'm figuring out what's going on here, that is not actually going into a subway station. That is an emergency exit for people who are in the tunnel that's going underneath the river in case they need to get evacuated in the course of an emergency. The actual subway station that would eventually be made and was being planned in the 70s was 63rd Street line, which is a huge difference, I know, but it's a different tunnel. It's a different part of the island. And I just got excited nerding out about that for a while.
Fair enough. And it's a fairly long island, right? It's not small.
Yeah, I mean, it's no Long Island, but it's still a fairly long island.
Stop it.
Well, Charlotte, we've got just about enough time for a final factoid. And since we just had a nice discussion about New York, where I grew up, I think it's only fair that we talk about where you grew up in California. And luckily, there's something in this movie that reminds us of California, which is our scientist, Jorn, who turns into an avocado man. So, Charlotte, do you have anything fun to say about the avocado?
When you think of avocado and eating avocado, do you generally think of it as something that comes in a savory type dish or in a sweet type dish?
Oh, I guess I mostly think savory, although there's a Thai restaurant that I order from a lot where they will make an avocado smoothie, and that's a bit sweet.
This was something that I found super interesting when I was looking up like ways to eat an avocado. Because when I think of an avocado, I automatically think of Mexican food, right?
Sure,
like
yeah.
I automatically think of the savory. I'm automatically thinking about guacamole, and I'm thinking about it in terms of, being on my burrito or my nacho or my taco or, as some sort of an accompaniment to that kind of a meal. I don't think of it as being a sweet thing. And so, it's surprising to me when avocados are showing up inside of those sweet shakes. And it turns out that those things happen when your cultural connection is more Southeast Asian as opposed to something that's a little bit more Latin America or Mexico. So I thought that was interesting. I've never had one of these avocado shakes. Are they good?
I mean, they're pretty good, but the thing is that this place also serves durian shakes or smoothies, and
you can't say no to that.
Yeah, turns out I really like that.
Yeah, it turns out that's a taste that you've actually cultivated for yourself because you want to like durian.
I mean, durian sort of does smell wild, but once I had somebody make a durian smoothie for me properly, it was very tasty. I really enjoyed it. I didn't have to work to try to like it. It was very tasty.
You've been to San Francisco with me at the same time. Did we take you to the ice cream parlor, Polly Ann's?
We did. I don't remember having avocado ice cream there, but I have had it.
Mm-hmm. They don't always have it in stock, right? Because they go through a few things. But the only time I think I've ever had something that's sweet with avocado would have been the avocado ice cream that I had at Polly Ann's. So, and it's up there with things like vegetable flavor, like my father would always tease us when we ended up with something off of the wheel with vegetable flavor. Like, you spin the wheel and you have to take what comes up on the wheel because it's choosing for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if it comes up avocado, you have to have it. And that's why I've had avocado ice cream, because it came up on the wheel and I was teased into submission to taking the avocado ice cream. And it was really delightful. It's totally delicious. There's no question about it.
Just like adding cheese, it's like adding something very rich and fatty to ice cream is going to make it even smoother and possibly a little too rich sometimes. But yeah, no, it can be very good.
Yeah, it was unexpected and delightful, and I wouldn't have thought of avocado being something with an ice cream. But, we've talked on this show about hot sauce on ice cream, and I wouldn't have thought of doing that either. So it's important for us all to, broaden our horizons. When I was looking at avocado recipes, there was a recipe that came out that was a mocha almond fudge avocado layer cake.
Right.
Where the cake is mocha almond fudge, and the things that's in between the layers of cake is a avocado frosting in between them. So just something I never would have thought to do, because avocado, it feels like a savory to me, but I'm so entranced by the idea of it being a sweet.
If you've been affected by the issues on this show, if you've had to deal with people not understanding your accent, or if you'd like to ask us anything, get in touch with us. Our email is info@itsjustashow.com, and we're on Blue Sky. Either way, we'd love to hear from you. And this show is made possible by listeners like you, and like our randomly selected supporter, Deborah. Thank you, Deborah. For about $1 an episode, you too can be like Deborah, and you can help us research and record this show, and you can join us in a friendly Discord, and you can listen to all our superfan bonus bits. Find out more at itsjustashow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/itsjustashow. I'm really selling it this time, friends. If you want to follow up on anything that was mentioned today, you can find links in our show notes at itsjustashow.com/episode/172.
Wow, how do you follow up a birthday celebration with a robot holocaust? What comes after that?
We're going to take a look at Season 5, Episode 11, Gunslinger, directed by Roger Corman, starring Beverly Garland.
I love Roger Corman. I love Beverly Garland, and it sounds like this is a Western.
It sure is. Yeehaw.
You're clicking all the boxes for me. This is going to be the best post-birthday gift ever. ever.
You get through all the radar men from the moon, you get a treat at the end of it.
Eee, I'm so happy.
But until then,
This whole movie is just socks and violence.
in the future, all robots will act like Don Knotts. Take it away, Theme Squad.
Dreams really do come true.